to episode 23 of the Dirty Water News Football Show. And
this is what happens
Nick is
when Steve's
beside
gone.
himself.
When Steve's gone, the show goes off the rails.
What happened last week when I was gone?
It went amazing. It went very smooth.
So rude. It's really unbelievable.
We missed you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
For the week. Steve is gone. He's at a wedding.
He's in hiding, trying to grow his stash back.
Nah, no more stash.
I know. I can't even believe it.
No more stash. And you know what? It's good. These are the things you can do when you're a single man. You can grow out ugly mustaches. You can you can just pander around the city, meeting many a woman. I mean, this is the life, the free flighting life that he leads. So
we miss the stash, Steve. At least I do. I thought it was fun.
I was going to say that makes one of us.
Anyway, you can follow us on Twitter at Katelyn Jean, at Nick Lesogor, or Funkmaster Flex over here.
Spinning on the ones and twos tonight.
Alrighty. And you can follow Steve as well at Uncle Stab. So we are heading into week 4 of the NFL season. And we had a pretty exciting and, in my opinion, unexpected game last night with Giants and Redskins. I was personally completely shocked that the New York Giants pulled it out, 45-14, I believe?
Yeah.
I was playing someone who had tight end superstar, apparently, Larry Donnell, and he has completely destroyed me thus far.
Yeah, when it comes to Eli Manning, the tight end to a degree is a security blanket. So it was unexpected, not completely, considering Donnell's had a couple of good weeks here.
Yep.
But this is what you're going to get. It's like I heard a radio host around here say, Thursday night football, and I agree with him, Thursday night football, you don't get much in terms of how good or how bad a team is because of the early turnaround. Mm-hmm. So it's not a real good gauge of how these guys are going to be the rest of the season in terms of fantasy.
Eli hasn't done anything up until last night.
Which I guess is the point.
But do you believe that they are going to actually, this whole West Coast offense thing under McAdoo, that they're going to suddenly be moving in the right direction, or is this a fluke?
Well, like I alluded to, it's one of those situations where, you're not getting much from a Thursday night game, so the jury is out. Right. For lack of a better term, just because of the idea that, like I said, you're on the short turnaround, you get like one practice in, and then, it's pretty much you're traveling, and then it's game time. So you're not getting much. What I can say is don't start any defense on a Thursday night game because these defenses just get lit up. And you saw it last week with Tampa Bay. Just got absolutely annihilated. My quick hit takeaway is Kirk Cousins. For anybody who started him, I apologize for you. I certainly wasn't on the Kirk Cousins bandwagon, as we'll read Steve's J'adore list in a little bit. He certainly was on the Kirk Cousins bandwagon. And in terms of Rashad, when it comes to Kirk Cousins, the interceptions that Cousins threw, they were quarterback faults. It wasn't off the hands of a wide receiver or tipped in the air. These were bad decisions by a quarterback. And I think that's what it boils down to is this guy's getting his first real shot to be the full-time starter, and you're going to have these types of games. He fits what Washington and Jay Gruden wants to do better than RG3. So in the long run, I think he'll be all right.
Still,
and I think he's droppable in 10-team leagues because, again, this was a bye-week fill-in that completely laid an egg. And, I picked up Tony Romo in my 10-team league, my most competitive one, and I'm ecstatic. And as we'll allude to in a little bit, I'm ecstatic to start him. And I was doing that over a guy like Cousins because, again, it's his first chance getting the start, and you just don't know what you're going to get out of him.
Right. Well, we're also moving into week 4, which means there's going to be a lot of players on bye. So I know in my leagues I have several Denver players, and unfortunately going to have most of them on a bye this week, or all of them on a bye this week. Julius Thomas, my big one, which I'm really going to miss him. But
you're talking Seattle, Cincinnati, Denver. This is a tough week. Arizona teams, you're looking at Ellington, Carson Palmer. Yep. They're on byes. So I think that this is going to be a tough week for fantasy footballers. So if you can pull out a win here in week 4, you may be setting yourself up going forward for a couple of nice or a nice season.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
So why don't we move into our J'adore list?
J'adore.
No bueno. We are a multilingual staff here at the Dirty Water News.
As Steve would say, I'm a bilingual baby.
A bilingual baby. Steve is. So let's talk about the start with our
Miss you, bud.
list.
Miss you.
Miss you, Steve. I hope you did that for me last week.
You'd have to watch to find out.
I think they just made fun of me. Anywho. Well, they did. Let's start with our J'adore list. Nick, who are you starting this week? You just talked about Tony Romo.
Yeah, so he's the quarterback on my J'adore list, and the point totals for Romo have gone up every week, and it's something that's going to continue to climb, and at some point it's going to plateau. You're talking about a New Orleans pass defense that is improved from last season, but I haven't seen much of an improvement. This is going to be a shootout. Sunday night football, 8:30, night game. These offenses are going to be going back and forth, mainly because Dallas's defense is so bad. New Orleans is going to be slinging it. They're going to be running the ball. They're going to be doing a ton of passing, and I think Romo is a QB1 in 12-team, 14-team leagues, especially 14-team leagues. 10-team leagues, QB1 considering Carson Palmer, Russell Wilson, Andy Dalton, Peyton Manning. These guys are on bye, so I think that he's a solid start, and again, it's going to be a huge shootout.
What's your argument for people who say, well, he throws too many interceptions, he's not reliable?
You're going to get that. Guys like him, Jay Cutler, Jake Locker, going to give you a decent amount of yards, couple of picks. But, if you started Kirk Cousins, he gave you 5 interceptions.
Right.
Romo's not going to throw 5 picks this Sunday night. He's going to throw 2, maybe 3, but he's going to have 350 yards and 3 touchdowns to go along with it to kind of balance it out.
Sure.
I would be surprised if he finished with anything less than, 20 fantasy points.
What about your running backs?
Yeah, my running backs, you're looking at Lamar Miller, Frank Gore. Gore didn't get many carries last week, 6 I think to be exact.
Yep.
They really pass the ball a lot, and Frank Gore showed his frustration sort of to the media after the game. He wasn't happy.
No.
You're not going to win very many games when you're giving Frank Gore less than 10, 11, 12 carries a game. The guy needs production. You're going to open things up for the passing offense. You're going to let Kaepernick do his thing. I get it. You paid Kaepernick, and Steve was right a few months ago when he said they paid Kaepernick. They want him to sling it. That's not the right direction to go, and this is a run-first team. They need to stick with it, and they're going to do it against Philadelphia, whose rush defense is not that good. In terms of Lamar Miller, he's the only horse in town. He's the only guy there. You're talking about Daniel Thomas, who they re-signed after cutting this offseason,
right.
And Mike Gillislee. Lamar Miller's going to get the bulk of the carries. They're going to be setting up the run, or they're going to be setting up the pass with the run. So you're going to look at Lamar Miller hopefully to get somewhere around 15 to 17 carries. Might be stretching it a little bit, but you're talking about a guy that's averaged 5.8 carries a game here,
right.
Or for the season, 5.8 yards per carry. That's unbelievable. So with no Sean Moreno out, look for Lamar Miller to have a good week.
How about your wide receivers, Nick?
My J'adore wide receiver list is, I'm a bilingual baby.
He is.
Is Roddy White at Minnesota and Cordero Patterson versus Atlanta. Taking, a number 2 from a high prolific passing offense and the number 1 from a passing offense that you don't know what you're going to get yet with Teddy Bridgewater there. You'd like to think that it's sort of the Mike Lennon theory or the, as we didn't, it didn't pan out well, but the Kirk Cousins theory where the backup fits the system better than the starter does. So,
and I'm sure it'll be a security blanket for Bridgewater too.
Yeah, they're going to be handing him the ball, and they're going to be throwing him the ball. Atlanta's offense is not that good. Their defense is not that good.
Yeah.
Don't let what they did to Tampa Bay fool you. That is a defense that struggles against the pass. They struggle against the run, and it's going to show against Minnesota. When it comes to Roddy White, he's coming off of an injury, sat out the Thursday night game. Obviously, they didn't need him against Tampa Bay. But he's an integral part of that offense. Matt Ryan almost looks to him first, even before Julio Jones. So expect Roddy White. It wouldn't surprise me 100 yards and a touchdown, 60 yards and a touchdown, something. I think he's going to find the end zone this week.
Okay. Your tight end.
Heath Miller, and it's really more of the fact that Julius Thomas is on a bye. Tyler Eifert, if you're in a deeper league. These guys are on byes. It's more of a Hail Mary. If you're looking for a guy that has a ceiling where he can get you 60 yards and a touchdown, it is Heath Miller. He's had a rough go of it. it's really surprising that Ben Roethlisberger hasn't been looking his way yet this year.
Right.
But if he's going to do it against anyone, it'll be against the Buccaneers because their defense is horrid.
Right. And speaking of defense, who are you starting for defense?
My J'adore defense, Kansas City against New England. Tom Brady, to me, is borderline droppable in 10-team leagues.
That hurts my heart.
He's right there. If you can't do it against Oakland, who can you do it against? And I guess that's the whole thing is if you can't do it against Oakland, are you really going to do it against Kansas City on Monday Night Football on the road?
Are you starting Kansas City, and against better offenses?
Am I starting the defense against better offenses? I mean, they were a stud defense last year. Had a lot of injuries. They've suffered. That linebacking core has been gutted with injuries.
And that's why I asked.
And I think New England's going to be a decent measuring stick. So going forward, who am I starting them against? I'm not starting them against Denver. Right. I think New England defense is a good enough defense that you can start them against everybody.
Yep.
But Kansas City, I think they're a spot start. You got to pick and choose just because of their injuries.
Right.
And I think Tom Brady's going to be passing the ball. I think Shane Vereen's going to be involved. Rob Gronkowski. These guys that can his security blankets. Julian Edelman. He's going to be passing the ball more than running it because you still have Tamba Ali in the middle there. So I think that their defense, you could see them finish with 10 points. I see no less than 6, 7, 8 fantasy points.
Yep.
And for defenses that are on buys, Seattle, Denver, Arizona, they're a good spot start.
Yep. Well, for me, I am most definitely
your J'adore list.
My J'adore list. I am most definitely starting Phillip Rivers this week. I think he is going to have an absolutely monster week. They're playing the Jaguars. There's just not much to be said there. I think Phillip Rivers is going to completely destroy them. He has some amazing targets, and I just think he's going to be he's going to put up a lot of points.
I hope not, for my own sake, because
I hope so.
I'm playing him in a 10-team league.
Right.
But, I mean, listen, look for Malcolm Floyd to get involved. And if Indianapolis, to me, San Diego's a better offense than Indianapolis.
Yeah.
If Indianapolis can rack up points on Jacksonville, there's no reason why San Diego can't.
Absolutely, and especially at home. For my running backs, I'm Kerry Robinson, who earlier in the year, obviously, I had him and wasn't particularly high on him because I had Mark Ingram. However, with Mark Ingram out and Pierre Thomas playing a bigger role in the passing game, I do think Kerry Robinson is going to get the bulk of the carries. And against the Cowboys, I think that it'll probably be a shootout, but he'll be good for some yardage.
So, what is my question to you is, when it comes to Kerry Robinson, are you nervous about Pierre Thomas taking carries away?
I think, but I think in terms of them actually trying to be a running team and run the ball, I think Pierre Thomas is going to be in the backfield. I see him as a threat probably more in, PPR leagues. I'm not sure in a standard league that it's as much of a threat. Who knows in this game whether or not the Saints are actually going to run the ball as much. However, Dallas' defense, again, isn't fantastic, so I'm hopeful that he's going to...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
This is a weird situation in terms of New Orleans, Saints, Breeze owners, Graham owners. Breeze has said for months now that they want to run the ball more.
Yes.
And you saw it. You've seen it as much.
And Mark Ingram did. That's the thing.
Right. But you know what? They're 1-2. Mm-hmm. At some point, when do you say the offensive game plan isn't working? Yep. Let's go back to what we know. Because maybe if we threw the ball a little bit more against Cleveland, we would have won that game. Yep. We wouldn't have lost by the field goal.
Right.
So I guess
I'm fine if he does that, throwing to Jimmy Graham, who has not been as productive as I thought he'd be, and exactly as for the reasons that you're stating.
Jimmy Graham owners, don't sell low. Wait on him.
Definitely.
He's going to turn it around because if they lose this week against Dallas, it's going to be a situation where they're going to have to figure something out in terms of that offense. They're going to have to start slinging the ball more.
Yeah.
So if you see them run the ball more, especially in the red zone like they have been doing, and they lose to go 1-3, you're going to start seeing them throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My second running back is Ahmad Bradshaw. I mean, I think for him, against the Titans, he's averaging, 14 fantasy points per game. And even though he's sharing carries with Trent Richardson, who obviously isn't particularly impressive, but the Titans' run defense has allowed 321 yards and 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. I'm feeling good about him. I do think Andrew Luck will be running the ball against the Titans.
The thing is, with Ahmad Bradshaw, and I love him on this list, he's only been getting 5 to 10 carries, but it's been what he's done with that.
Right, exactly.
He's turned it into 60 yards, 70 yards, and a touchdown,
right.
which makes him startable, and that's putting Trent Richardson owners, it's making them pull their hair out because they got to sit the guy. So.
Which is, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, in this year's league, there are so many running back, trifectas or duos that are just, who knows who to start. So it's kind of, I have found personally the running back decisions to be more challenging than they have been in the past, for sure, specifically this year. For my receivers, that's not distracting. I'm going to be starting Alshon Jeffrey and Steve Smith. Alshon Jeffrey blew it up for me last week. He was amazing. I think part of this is because Brandon Marshall is obviously hurt. He's taken a little bit of time to recover. Whether or not he plays is a question. And I just see Jeffrey being a prime target for Cutler, in addition to Martellus Bennett. Steve Smith, we talked about this earlier. Steve Smith is a surprise. I mean, I think him going back to Carolina, he's obviously going to want to produce. And he's certainly going to be someone that Joe Flacco has at least relied upon. Torrey Smith has not been, hugely productive, and that's partly because Steve Smith has been great. So, surprisingly.
If by hugely productive you mean not even close in the vicinity of productive, for fantasy owners that drafted Torrey Smith, you can drop him times
Would you pick
10.
up Steve Smith?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was one of my top waiver claims a few weeks ago, and I didn't get him because a guy that had a higher waiver claim than me nabbed him. And I had a top 5 waiver claim.
Right.
That's how high.
And Dennis Pitta out now too. I mean, Steve Smith's gonna be getting a lot of balls
right.
thrown his way.
But make no mistake about it, Gary Kubiak's the offensive coordinator there. They'll be throwing to the tight end too. I mean, Owen Daniels is going to get plenty of looks.
And then for my tight end, so I'm high on Delaney Walker if he plays. I mean, there is definitely some question as to whether or not he has a shoulder injury. But the Colts have been allowing a lot of yardage against tight ends. If he plays, I'm feeling pretty good about him. And for my defense, I'm going to start Miami, partly because they're playing Oakland, but partly because they're playing Oakland, who's now traveling to London after traveling cross-country last week. I mean, I just can't imagine that they're going to have a great game. The Patriots defense, who is amazing, kept them to 3 field goals last week. I'm just not feeling super strong about Oakland in general, but certainly not across the pond.
Because of bye weeks this week, you're looking at defenses like Miami, Pittsburgh against Tampa Bay. You're also looking at possibly the Jets. Because Detroit put up a stinker a few weeks ago in terms of offensively.
Yep.
So these are defenses you're looking at, and I like it in terms of what Miami's did defensively to New England.
Yep.
And with Buffalo, they gave up a couple of touchdowns, but again, it's a spot start, and you're hoping to just get in the positive and pull out a victory.
You want to touch on Steve's list?
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny at this point, but Steve was pretty high on Kirk Cousins going into this, and obviously this was written Wednesday and not on not this morning. So Steve's QB was Kirk Cousins, which unfortunately blew up in his face. Fortunately for Nick. His running backs are Eddie Lacy and Rashad Jennings. Wide receivers, Des Bryant, I think is a great one, and Victor Cruz. And then finally, tight end Martellus Bennett and the defense for the Detroit Lions.
So I don't know how familiar you are with this situation, and by the grin on your face, that is Steve's lineup against me this week in the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football League, of which Dave, our producer, I think is like 1-2. I'm 2. He's 0-3.
It's okay.
0-3. Tough sledding, bud. I'm 2-1, and Steve and I are playing for first place. So Kirk Cousins, Rashad Jennings, and Victor Cruz. 21 points between the 3 of them. I'm sure any fantasy owner would take that between 3 guys if you're playing that team. I'll take that all day. He can have his 21 points, and hopefully I can pull out a victory there and get first place in the league and on my way to a championship. But, so for anybody that doesn't follow the Instagram account at DWN Fantasy Football Show, we'll post the teams up there, and that's Steve's J'adore list.
No bueno.
Yeah, I mean...
who's on your no bueno list? And for those who don't know, that means not good.
Right. I'm calling it because Steve's gone, so I'm going to call it the no buenos list. The no buensy list. The...
no buensy.
Yeah, I mean, thinking up, Garoppolo, thinking up words. What are you going to do?
My personal favorite.
the buensito list. No bueno. Don't like it. Cam Newton is the quarterback on my no bueno list at Baltimore. The defense is a little bit better than average, and I think that the rush defense has struggled against teams like Cleveland with lesser running backs. I think D'Angelo Williams is better than Terrence West, and I think that Williams you look for him to get about 15 carries. He's another guy I love this week.
I picked him up, yeah.
You could look for 70 yards you're going to probably get out of him. You're hoping for that touchdown to get him into double digits. I think Newton is going to struggle. My running backs, Trent Richardson and Reggie Bush. We went over the Ahmad Bradshaw effect there in Indy. No need to harp on that. Reggie Bush against the Jets. The Jets' rush defense is really surprising a lot of people.
Good. Yeah.
And I think that I think that Reggie Bush isn't being phased out of this offense, but they're making a concerted effort with the idea that they're going to make the playoffs to limit his snaps. They really like what Joique Bell's giving them on the offensive end of the offensive side of the ball. So I think you're going to see a little bit more Joique Bell this week than you are Reggie Bush.
More consistent. So.
It has. Reggie Bush had more play than Joique last week, but the week before Joique had more play than Reggie. Right. This is going to be a timeshare situation.
Yep. Your wide receivers.
Jeremy Maclin against San Francisco. It's San Francisco, and they've shown no signs of letting up. They gave up all those points to Chicago's offense. And while I like Philadelphia's offense, I don't think they're on the level of Chicago's, even with a hobbled Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. And any Kansas City receiver against New England, because Kansas City's at home. New England has shown holes in their pass defense. They're right in the top teams in terms of interceptions, but they have
receivers aren't even that great
in Kansas City.
Yeah,
they're in Kansas City, so I think that when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and their wide receivers, it's going to be a tough situation to gauge. I like Donnie Avery. You're going to have Revis on one side of the field there. I like Donnie Avery, but other than that, it's going to be tough sledding for Kansas City for sure.
Okay. For my no points list, we skipped your defense.
Sorry. San Francisco, I think, is my defense I don't like. I don't like Jeremy Maclin, but I don't like this just because I think Philly's going to be running a lot of plays. They're going to score. Nick Foles is going to put the ball in the end zone. This could be a game where you see LaShawn McCoy catch some short passes out of the backfield for 20, 30, 40-yard gains here. I think Maclin's going to be on lock. Maybe Riley Cooper gets his first touchdown of the season. Yeah. But this could be a Zach Ertz game for sure. Just listed Jordan Matthews. I mean, all of them.
Please keep going.
Every single one. All of them, except for Jeremy Maclin.
Got it. For my list, I am. To your earlier point, Kansas City, I'm sitting Alex Smith. I mean, I don't know that he's hugely high in a lot of leagues as is, but I just, I think the Pats defense is just going to prove to be too challenging for him, and he just doesn't have a great receiving corps. What's happening? So I'm just not particularly excited about Alex Smith, and really I'm not, just in general. For my running backs, Nick and I had an argument about this. Sorry, Steve's not here. I am going to sit Shane Vereen, particularly because personally I'm in standard leagues. In the PPR leagues, I think Shane Vereen can be valuable. We have seen Ridley getting the ball, but Nick did make a good point earlier. Vereen is someone who, could be targeted this week because Kansas City does have a good rush defense. So we'll see what happens. I haven't totally decided yet. You may have convinced me. I think in PPR leagues, sure. In standard leagues, I'm not as excited. For my other running backs, I'm going to go similar to what you did earlier. I'm not starting any Jets running back. That's probably because, again, the Lions' run D is actually pretty good. Go ahead.
What do you think about if you had to start one, Chris Ivory or Chris Johnson?
Chris Ivory.
Yeah, I think Ivory's and I think a lot of people are curious about this, so I want to touch on this.
Yeah.
Chris Ivory is a player that Rex Ryan is getting more used to. He's putting him in the game more. He's gaining more confidence in him. You're talking about a guy that I think is averaging upwards of over 5.5 yards per carry, a guy that can break tackles.
Yeah.
Chris Johnson's just not doing it. 3.5 yards a carry.
Right.
They're splitting time right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if within the next few weeks you see Chris Ivory get the starts. I think he's giving Chris Johnson the start, but in terms of start, it means nothing in New York because they switch these guys in and out.
Often,
you're seeing Chris Ivory catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. And he's sort of becoming Geno Smith's, second security blanket of sorts, just because of the idea that, he's checking it down to him quick, and he can break tackles, get an extra 10 or 15 yards.
Yep.
because of buys, I'm starting Chris Ivory in a 10-team league this week, and I'm starting him with confidence because, again, I think it's going to be Chris Johnson doesn't get hurt. So the idea that he's going to get hurt is a little far-fetched, but I think that Ivory's going to get a lot of play, especially if the Jets are down by a lot of points early on. You're going to see Chris Ivory in the game more than Chris Johnson because Ivory can catch passes.
Yeah, that's fair. And to that point, though, the Lions, I found out, have allowed 2.8 yards per carry and just 39.6 yards allowed to starting running backs. But to your earlier point, again, Johnson is technically the starting running back, so who knows?
Their cornerbacks are garbage.
Yeah.
And this is where I think their linebackers are slow. This is where I think Chris Ivory could have a good game.
For receivers, Eric Decker, I'm just partly because he's playing through a hamstring injury. I don't think that, to your point, I think that it's more an injury thing versus that the Lions secondary is good.
And I just real quick, I would second that. He's not reliable. You started him last week, and he Monday Night Football, he was out after, I think, the second quarter.
Right, exactly.
So he's just not reliable at this point.
No. And then also Brandon Marshall, same concept, injury. He is injured. He's starting slow. He had a great first couple games last week. He didn't even produce, I think, in the second half. So partly because I think they're going to be throwing Alshon Jeffrey. They know he's healthy. Brandon Marshall hasn't practiced this week, so I wouldn't start him.
Just play a name game real quick.
Okay.
Brandon Marshall or T.Y. Hilton this week? Hilton against Tennessee.
T.Y. Hilton.
Okay, Brandon.
And again, it's because of the injury. We don't. To me, it's just not reliable enough. So if you have another good wide receiver, I'd start him ahead of him. Keep an eye on the injury report, though. He hasn't practiced. I don't know. I don't feel confident.
Brandon Marshall or Torrey Smith?
Brandon Marshall. Because Torrey Smith isn't producing at all, as you said. So again, it really depends on whether or not he's injured.
Brandon Marshall or Julian Edelman?
Julian Edelman. For my tight end, Jason Witten, he just hasn't really been a factor at all this season thus far. And I also think in this game, it's going to be a shootout. I think I see Romo going much more to Des Bryant and to Terrence Williams. So I'm just not sure Witten's going to be a factor. And who knows? Maybe, I don't know what's going on with him for the rest of the season either. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
If he's going to be effective, this is the game to do it. Because Romo's going to be throwing the ball a ton. And
Witten, do you think he's going to be throwing downfield? Targeting
Witten's his guy. At some point, Witten's going to turn it on. And you know what? You didn't draft him in the 8th, 9th, 10th round to release him after 3 weeks.
Yep.
You got to keep him on your bench. He's still a playmaker in that offense. He's had a rough go of it, but I think that again, he's Romo's guy. So I'm not too worried about him. Give it a few more weeks.
And then finally, for my defense that I'm sitting, I'm going to sit New Orleans, and I have New Orleans in. I'm going to sit them. And that's, again, I just think it's going to be a shootout and a high-scoring game. I just didn't know that this is the game to start either of those defenses, to be honest.
Perfect. Do you want to go into Steve's No Bueno list?
Nope. Wow. Sure. For Steve, he is sitting Matt Ryan, which I'm a little surprised about. But he's sitting running backs Lamar Miller and Fred Jackson. He's sitting wide receivers Golden Tate and T.Y. Hilton. Tight end Zach Ertz, defense Pittsburgh Steelers. What's up? I just ignored you the whole time.
I know. Why? Why?
I don't know. I felt like it.
Got to improv
right.
So the team that Steve's on his No Bueno list, that is my team for this week. So basically,
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I think. That's silly. Matt Ryan.
Well, that's why he did that. It's play on the situation, call back to an earlier joke.
Sure.
And so I think that
good one, Steve.
That list is awful, and I'm looking for the win. And we'll keep you guys updated as the week goes along for sure.
All right.
Dance party?
Well, I think we might have to go because next kid is going to explode in about 5 seconds, and I don't want to put any of you through that. Thanks so much for watching episode 23 of the Dirty Water News Fantasy Football Show.
You want to give the peace sign?
I won't do that to you again either. Sorry, that's my mistake 2 weeks ago. Make sure you tweet us your questions this weekend.
Sunday morning, yep.
Yeah, again, at Katelyn Jean, at Nick Lesogor, at Uncle Stav.
Lesogor, whatever camera it's in. Lesogor. Don't forget it, at Nick Lesogor. You can follow us on Instagram, at DWN Fantasy Football Show, all one word.
Or you can shoot us an email if you have questions, too, and you prefer to do that.
We'll read them on the show.
We will. fantasyfootball@dirtywaternews.com.
Perfect.
Anything else? Or do you want to go to
Adios.
Bye. Bye.